Feeling the need for change is at the heart of your ability to make it happen. I'm Vivian Carrasco, and I'd like to welcome you to Turning Inward. I am your creative midwife, your teacher, and host of this podcast. Together, we're going to navigate the interior life by unearthing your personal truth, insight, and your inner knowing. In 2 words, this is your inner work. Hello, lovelies. So excited about being with you today. I have a super cool story to tell you. I alluded to it in the previous episode, but I've been sort of holding my tongue, waiting for the experience to marinate, because I knew that there was something missing. And this weekend, the light bulb went on and I figured out exactly what it was. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is change in identity. It's the big mama jamma, right? To change that goes on in the world. But for me, that's kind of what kicked off this whole experience of personal transformation, is that I was no longer the mother of boys. I was transitioning into the mother of grown men. And that was a completely different life. Stacked on top of that was David's retirement, moving, changing vocations, the whole bit. I mean, if you were to look at all the things that you could change in your life that would bring on the greatest amount of stress, I took them on all at once. And that change, that transformation, that releasing of those identities, military wife, the whole bit, took me 7 years. 7 years I went through the process of transformation. That's a really super long time. And my most recent learning experience, and it was fascinating to watch in a different way, sort of like the spectator, like watching the movie, seeing how I go through it, was this transformational shift as I took on the responsibility of being a yoga teacher, yoga instructor. In October of 2013, when I had the love being human epiphany, that shift of moving away from what I feared and instead making the decision to move towards what I loved, opened up this path. And the very next sort of significant thing that happened for me is the car accident that happened in April of 2014 when I was hit by a car as I was crossing the street. I happened to be in yoga teacher training at the time. I knew that I needed to deepen my practice in sort of creating an elixir between the body, the embodiment of who I was and how I was feeling and the choices I was making, and just commit full force to calming my mind and the noise that was just literally driving me crazy at the time. So I went through yoga teacher training, but I knew that it wasn't time for me to teach. And I sort of joked with my yoga peeps and said, when Sunday morning opens up, I'll take that class because I want to have yoga church in a non-religious way, but in a way that you are moving in flow as a moving meditation in a sanctuary, the studio, where there is no talking, there is no technology. And the practice I have is called hot yoga. And it's generally 104 degrees, and we keep the humidity usually between 66 and 77. I like it to keep it sweaty and hot. And for me, the sweat was like an elixir. It was the tonic that was kind of transforming the anxiety and the worries and the stress into something that I could deal with. So it was stacked on top of my daily prayer. It really came through for me. So for me, the practice that happens in the studio is the body, embodiment, relaxing the body, calming the mind. And then what happens outside of that is opening your heart. And so that's love being human. It is mind, body, and spirit. Because your intuition, your imagination, your creativity, everything about who you are in your essence of you comes from your heart. It doesn't come from your head. And we rely on that a false belief that the logic is going to save us. And I did the exact same thing. So my big transformation from all those identities took 7 years to move through. My transformation from not being a yoga teacher to saying I am a yoga teacher and enjoying the process took 7 weeks. Look at how distinctly shortened that learning curve was. I loved it. But what was fascinating for me is that, well, first of all, every teacher teaches what they need to know. And I think that's what I was doing. I was observing myself moving through this. And when I was stuck in overwhelm, when I was questioning who I was to try to do this, I wanted to find the limiting belief, the reason why I was afraid. There had to be a reason. And once I found the reason for my fear, I could face it because that's my strategy. But what I recognized as I moved through that is that it is, and I knew this, I know this, I teach this, is that any change will bubble up fear in you. There's no way to avoid it. You cannot avoid it. You can't sweep it away. You only move through it. And the easiest, fastest way is to move through it slowly and very, very small. So tiny, tiny steps that increase your confidence, but that keep you moving forward, because there's also no way to turn, to transform, to alchemize that fear into fun unless you actually do it. Life's big questions. I said this to someone last night. Life's big questions. The big inquiry is the big questions are answered through gentle inquiry. Those lifelong revelations about meant and meaning and what will be begin right here with what's right in front of you, right at this time. I just thought it was freaking fascinating. So I was moving from this individual Sherpa. Life coaching one-on-one is walking alongside you, carrying a lantern. But teaching and leading is totally different. And it coincided immediately with the launching of Within University. So it was the next sort of leaf that was being born in my own personal being is I am leading, I am mentoring, I am teaching, I am holding space for this community to move through their own identity shifts and loving you hard through all of that. That's my vocation, my service, my devotion in life is to turn back what I've received and the joy and the fulfillment and the peace that I feel in my life back to you. That's why this podcast exists. So let's see, I have notes here so that I don't forget. So all of this is a death and rebirth. And this death and rebirth happens throughout your life. Whenever we lose something, we mourn it. But what I figured out, and I didn't really trust it, I didn't have faith in it until it happened to me. And the same thing will happen to you. I mean, don't trust me. You have to move through this yourself. You have to find what's dying, who or what part of you is dying that needs to, so that you give room for this new birth. I mean, that's why there are seasons on earth, right? We naturally move through seasons, and especially here in the Western world, we forget that. We think that we can control and keep things a certain way, when in reality, they are meant to shift. They are meant to turn and grow. And, as a human being, we just don't like that loss. But if we look for the life that is giving birth to, that's for me part of where the excitement is. So the very first lesson or insight that I already knew, that I remembered as I went through this, is anything that is new to you, absolutely anything. Putting on the left shoe first instead of the right shoe, it's going to cause you discomfort. Anything. Writing with the opposite hand that you're comfortable with, because the brain loves habits. I mean, if we weren't comfortable in what we already knew how to do, we'd have to wake up every morning and relearn everything that we already learned. So the brain doesn't like to waste its energy. That's why absolutely anything you do is going to bring you discomfort. So That is the biggest, you can't, and this is what clicked for me this weekend. I had the opportunity and the reverent honor to speak to a group of new up and coming yoga teachers. My teacher, Sumit, who is the originator of the sequence that I practice, was teaching yoga teachers, and he asked me to do this life coaching thing, which I thought was hilarious. Do that. And I enjoyed the heck out of it. So I'll give you a little insight on that in a bit. But what clicked for me is in there, this is the second thing. One of the beautiful students, a lovely, lighthearted soul, said, more of in a statement than in a question. As I was talking, she said, so you can't avoid it? You move through it. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. And as I was going through my own transformation to becoming a yoga teacher, I wanted to avoid it. I thought if I put logic on it, I could avoid the fear, but there's absolutely no way to avoid the fear. You can prepare, practice, but the movement into that becoming is going to cause you to be afraid. And that's okay. What I have found that's super fun is watching that fear literally become fun, that uncertainty become confidence. It has been fascinating. So those are the two key insights. Let me see if I have anything. So who are you? There's, I thought I wrote it down. Yeah, I did. I wrote it down. Who is your true self? The true self, and this is one of the things that Sumit talked about this weekend, more from a Hindu perspective, but I'm going to talk about it from a Christian perspective. So the true self is the I am. And the descriptor after that is what changes and what shifts. And that's what brings us our pain and our distress and our suffering, because we don't like change. Even if we want it, we don't, by our nature of being a human being, we don't like it. So what I wrote down that I wanted to share with you is God's reply to Moses when Moses asked him his name. And this is a common English translation of the Hebrew words in the Torah. I am who I am. And even saying that just gave me comfort. The I am, the essence of me, never changes. And as a matter of fact, the more ganas, the more white hair I get on my head, the more of the crone I become, the more I get to know who I am outside of those identities that the world sees me as. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to freaking see. So what is the essential dimension of you? And I really want to give you a provocation here. The essential is invisible. This is why I talk about the being and your doing so much, because it is the cornerstone of everything. My mind sort of is blown apart when I think about it, but if I actually on the regular, like from moment to moment, recognized how much of what I see, I don't actually see, I think my mind would sort of kind of go poof. The essential is invisible. And I'm not going to give it a percentage, but very little of what's in front of us we can see with our eyes. We can see so much more when we look through our heart. And that's the work. So your first step is always to turn inward, to turn away from the shoulds, the who's, the everyone's, the they. That's why this is called turning inward. And look through the eyes of your heart, inside of the essence of you, to find the thing that never changes, while the outside of you continues to change beautifully, like a garden in bloom, planting seeds and then blooming. I'm really excited about those two insights that came to me. I am so very grateful to have you, to be in your ear. And you can always share your feedback with me. I love hearing from you. Vivian at viviancarrasco.com. Or if you want to get regular updates to the podcast, to write to your email, just visit the blog or scroll down on the homepage to read more. And at the end of each blog post, there's an opportunity for you to put in your name and email, and I will send you a personal note when each new podcast comes live, and it'll be able to read it and listen to it on whatever device is most convenient for you. So this is how change happens. can't avoid the fear. And the essence of you never goes anywhere. But the descriptors of the I am will continue to change throughout your life. If you're living, if you're growing, and if you're loving, those things will continue to change. And I just want to say that I am so, so proud of you. I have so much admiration for you. Because if you're listening to this, you're considering that transformation, or you're in the middle of it right now. And that takes so much courage. So, so much courage. And I just want to recognize that. And maybe ask you to offer yourself some kindness as you move through your own transformation. Because I can tell you that it was super hard for me to do. I kept telling myself, I'm smarter than this. I know this. What is this? That's all natural. But in the middle of that, bring your hand to your heart. Give yourself a hug. Watch your words, that they are in kindness and in compassion and in belief that you're moving through that threshold of the doorway into that next room with anticipation and awe at the fun and the love and the service and the gifts that you're about to give, whether it's becoming a yoga teacher, becoming a new mom, becoming a new wife, moving into a new role at work, whatever it is, there is always new. There is always different. Every day that you wake up, there is new. It renews. So enjoy creating your world and reach out to me if I can help in any way. Namaste. If something needs to change and you don't quite know what it is yet, tune in and turn inward. I host an online learning community where we can figure it out together. It feels like a little family, and it's a place where you can be supported and offer support, because togetherness sparks change. Visit my digital home at viviancarrasco.com to learn more.